Hey everyone, what is going on? And welcome back to another meta guide. So the Open Great League as well as the Sunshine Cup are going to be available beginning tomorrow. We currently have all three leagues going on. So the Great League as well as the Ultra League and Master League are going on right now. But we're going to have another week of the Open Great League. And let's go ahead and take a look at some of the best Pokemon and best teams, because this is a pretty big meta. So we'll go ahead and dive right into it. Starting off with Medicham. You all know how great Medicham is, right? Just such a top Pokemon. I don't know what they could do to make it useless. It's never going to be useless, but I mean, they nerfed Psychic. That's not really going to do it. I guess they would have to nerf Counter, but I don't think they're going to nerf Counter because that would affect a lot of other Pokemon that are good, but maybe not as good as Medicham. For example, Surfetch'd, right? It's decent, but it doesn't compete with Medicham. But if they nerf the Counter, that's going to affect Surfetch'd with a bunch of other Pokemon. But yeah, Medicham is just a top fighting type, and it's not on every team, but you pretty much expect to see it, right, nowadays. Or for always, I guess. Medicham, especially the XL Medicham, if you happen to have a good one. Carbink is another great one. It's new. It's new. A lot of people might not have the XLs for it. I guess you could get away with running like a perfect or close to it without only level 40, but it gets that much better at level 50. And it has play because it's a rock type, but it has play against the fighting types because it's also a fairy type. So just such a great Pokemon. Lickitung is, I would say, the best save swap in the current meta. It's always been a great save swap, but it's just even better now. It's just such a dominating save swap. A lot of times, if your opponent responds with a Lickitung save swap, you have to like chip the Lickitung before you switch out because you don't have an answer that dominates it, right? It's that good. And then we have Gligar next up. Gligar got a buff this season, got a couple buffs, so Dig and Aerial Ace do more damage, right? And I mean, well, Dig doesn't do more damage, it actually does less damage, but you get to it a lot faster. It's a really good Pokemon, and the top flyer nowadays this season, which is really cool. Gligar's a really cool Pokemon to see. And then we have Registeel, a great Steel-type Pokemon. Registeel's been around since the dawn of time. That's what it seems like, but since the beginning of Go Battle League. Next we have Swampert, or the Shadow version of Swampert. Swampert with the Hydro Cannon is so powerful. It really is, right? Just so powerful. Gets to it so fast with those Mud Shots. Steelix is new this season. Yes, it's been around. It's been decent with Psychic Fangs in the past. But now that it has Breaking Swipe, it's that much better. And you know, Steelix is interesting because I feel like, and others agree with me, that they probably shouldn't have given Steelix Breaking Swipe. They should have given really frail Pokemon, like the Heliolisk, Breaking Swipe over something that's already bulky. But that's how good Steelix is. It's top rank. It really is. Such a great one. I love using it for the Ultra League. It's really good in the Great League as well. Moving on to the A rank, we have Sableye. Sableye is a really great safe swap, but it's not quite as good as Lickitung because there's so many Lickitungs hiding out in the back that if you safe swap Sableye, it could get met with a Lickitung, which you don't want, but it happens, right? But either way, Sableye is such a great safe swap for sure. And then we have Pelipper. So Pelipper, another really good Pokemon. Just has to watch out for the Lantern. I think it's really good. It's just, I mean, the Lantern is what's holding it back because of how good Lantern is. Speaking of Lantern, next up on the list, Lantern is one of the best Pokemon in this meta. I wouldn't call it a great safe swap because it gets walled by grass types with its moves, but it was, I don't know. I mean, it technically takes longer to get to the Surf and Thunderbolt now by one turn, but at the same time, Spark is doing more damage, so it's easier to farm down Pokemon. So it really wasn't nerfed. It was kind of like rebalanced in a way, but it's such a great Pokemon. Superior, I love Superior. I actually hit Legend with Superior back in Season 7. I remember the season. That was before the Aerial Ace buff. I did run Aerial Ace on it, but it's even better now, and Superior is a really thick tank. So really good Pokemon, absolutely love it. Yes, there's some Pokemon in the meta that wall it, but still a really strong Pokemon nonetheless. I mean, Aerial Ace still isn't really the greatest move in the world, but it's better now than it was, right? And it still hits hard with Frenzy Plant as well. Alola Ninetales is really good with Powder Snow or Charm. Probably Charm, but if you're going with an Ice type, probably go with the Alolan Sandslash. But, I mean, yeah, Charm really strong, really powerful. I love the Shadow version of Ninetales. Speaking of Alolan Sandslash, another really strong pick, of course. Ever since it received Drill Run, it became on the top of the list for the Great and Ultra League, and a bunch of specific metas as well. It was decent before with Bulldoze, but not really in the Open Great League. And then next up, the B rank, we do have Scrafty. Yeah, Scrafty is still a good Pokemon. I feel like you don't see it much nowadays, but still a really strong Pokemon. Not as good as the Medicham, of course. Galarian Stunfisk was nerfed this season. I feel like it's underrated because of the Earthquake nerf. It's still really good. It's not, obviously it's not as good, but it's still a really good Pokemon, and it does hit like a truck. I imagine it will increase in rank once the Shadow version of Galarian Stunfisk comes out with that Shadow Earthquake damage and Rock Slide, right? But it's still a good Pokemon. And then we have Cresselia. You see Cresselia more so in the Ultra League. It's still good in the Great League, though, because it's such a tank. It really is. Mandibuzz received that Aerial. I mean, it didn't receive the Aerial Ace. It's always had it, but Aerial Ace did receive a buff this season, so that makes Mandibuzz a little bit better. I really feel like Aerial Ace should have been a Body Slam clone, I think. Maybe it would have been too good if it was, but that would have been better. It's not quite that good, but it's still a really good Pokemon. The bulk really helps out Mandibuzz more than anything, and that's what helps out these Aerial Ace users, in my opinion. Superior with the bulk, and Mandibuzz with the bulk as well. And then we have Venusaur, Shadow Venusaur. Yeah, I mean, I would say really strong Pokemon this current season. Yeah, I mean, it's better this season. I think the grass types are better this season than they were, but Venusaur, Shadow Venusaur, if you save shields, if you have a shield advantage, if you have an energy advantage, Venusaur absolutely destroys. You can two-shot an Alolan Sandslash with the Shadow Venusaur. That's how crazy it is. Then Defense DX, of course, the Defense DX has always been good. I see it a lot in the lead, no doubt about it. And then we have Charizard. Charizard, of course, with that wing attack, did receive that buff multiple seasons ago, whenever it was, with Dragon Claw and Blast Burn. Hits like an absolute truck, right? So that's going to be the SA and B tier. Let's go ahead and move on to the other options. We do have Poliwrath. Poliwrath did receive the Community Day to get counter, so it is competitive now. Double and Machamp, a couple other fighting type. I mean, Double's not a fighting type, but it has Double Kick and Body Slam, so the Body Slam spam. Machamp. Machamp's a little bit underrated compared to other fighters. We see Medicham is the top. I understand why Machamp is underrated, because Medicham is just the top fighter, but Machamp is still a good Pokemon. But at the end of the day, I know it's not as good as Medicham, right? But that's going back to the whole, if they nerf counter, they're going to be nerfing Machamp as well. And Machamp is good, Shadow Machamp is good, but it's not as good, not nearly as good as Medicham. And then we have Mantine. I like Pelipper more, just because I really like the Weather Balls, but I mean, with that Aerial Ace buff, it's actually a pretty good Pokemon. So, yeah, I mean, Mantine, I've seen it a few times this season. Not crazy. It's not like top of the list, but it is relevant, and it is a good one. We have a couple Mud Boys, Wishcash and Quagsire. Swampert is better in my opinion, but these did receive the Mud Bomb buff at one point. Was it last season? 2 seasons ago? I think it was last season. But either way, they're good now. Vigoroth, another counter user, so another Pokemon that would be nerfed if they nerfed the counter. Which wouldn't be a bad thing because Vigoroth dominates a lot of specific cups like the Sunshine Cup. But no, Vigoroth is a really strong Pokemon. But I would say it is better for specific themed cups than it is the Open Great League. Then we have Greedent. Greedent did receive the Mudshot this season. I like Greedent more so in the Ultra League, but another option for you. And then we have Dragonite or Shadow Dragonite. We got Diggersby. Diggersby did get that Scorching Sands move. Scorching Sands. Better than Earthquake to have in Diggersby. So, yeah, I mean, I feel like the moveset nowadays is Scorching Sands Hyper Beam. I have been hit with Fire Punch, so it still exists, but not as much as Hyper Beam Scorching Sands, right? And then we have a Azumel. I've been seeing more and more Azumel this season than I have the past few seasons. It's always been up there, but it's been slowly falling off the list until this season. I see it more now. And then we have Nidoqueen. Nidoqueen is a Pokemon ever since it received that nerf to Poison Fang. Poison Fang, right? I feel like it's underrated. I still think Nidoqueen or Shadow Nidoqueen, both of them are really, really good. I really believe that. But I will be fair and say it's not as good as it once was. But it's still on this list. I think it's a great Pokemon. But that's going to be the Great League for you. Let's go ahead and move on to the solid team options. So, for the first team, I got into the 2900s this season with this team. I didn't hit Legend with this team, at least not yet. By the time you're watching this, I may be Legend. I'm not sure, because I'm recording this ahead of time, several days ahead of time. But the team is going to be Charmalola Ninetales, Shadow Charmalola Ninetales, Medicham. I've been using Power Up Punch and Psychic. Ice Punch is also an option in Carbink. So this team, generally speaking, you want to win lead at all costs, right? Yeah, and the thing is, I think Charm is really good because I've been seeing a lot of ABA weak to Charm or weak to Fairy teams. I've seen Sableye in the lead, Medicham in the lead with a Sableye or Medicham in the back. It's just crazy. So I think it's really strong. But this team does have a lot of weaknesses. If you run into a Steel lead, what do? You have to, if it's Steelix, you could actually win that with the Ninetales because Dragon Tail as well as Breaking Swipe are both double resisted, so they have to go for the Earthquake or Bait. So that's good, but if you run into another Steel type like a Alolan Sandslash, or if you run into a Registeel or Bastiodon, you gotta go into the Carbink, because that's a terrible matchup for Carbink, right? Unless if it's a Sandslash. I guess Carbink versus Sandslash is not that bad, but the other ones are pretty bad, the other Steel types, but you really have to go into it, and you're gonna struggle. You're gonna struggle. So that's definitely a weakness if you see a Steel type in the lead. And then Venusaur, which has been gaining more and more momentum, is tough. Well, Poison Grass types in general, but Venusaur because, yeah, I mean, Charm is resisted, Carbink is weak to Grass, Medicham, the counters are resisted, right, thanks to the Poison typing. So that's a really tough Pokemon. But if you have, if you have good alignment, you could still win. You could still win. You could still win out. And it was good enough to get me into the 2900. So really strong team. It can't win against the Victreebel Bastiodon team because no matter what, either one of those in the lead is going to be really tough for you, right? I don't see how you could win against that. Next team up, I actually battled this team during Go Battle Weekend, and I did lose to it. It's a really strong team. Shadow Nidoqueen with Lickitung as a safe swap and Medicham. I think this is a great team. As I said, I think Nidoqueen, that's another team that beats the first team. Nidoqueen absolutely shuts down the first team, right? But Nidoqueen is just a really, really strong Pokemon. And yeah, it was nerfed several seasons ago, but I still think it's really good, and I do think it's underrated. So I think Nidoqueen does pick up a lot of positive matchups. Obviously, it loses to some matchups as well. You don't want to see a Sandslash. You don't want to see a Swampert in the lead, but still, it's a really, really strong pick. And then moving on, we have actually a team I did battle during Go Battle Weekend, and I did lose to as well. With Lantern Double Grass with Venusaur, I would go with the Shadow one. If you don't have the Shadow one, the regular one is fine. And then Superior, I tried this for one set, and I did well with it. I think I had a 3-2, but I only used it for one set. And I've been using, when I was using Superior as a safe swap. Of course, the backline hates Fire, but Lantern does well against Fire. So, yeah, it's such a powerful team. Alolan Sandslash, I guess, could be an issue, but Lantern has play against it. And even the Frenzy Plants from like the Shadow Venusaur still hit like a truck. So I still think this team can work out really well. Next up, we have Alolan Sandslash in the lead with Sableye, great safe swap, and Azumel. Both Azumel and Sableye are both really good safe swaps. It's just that you do have to watch out for Lantern with the Azumel safe swap because Lantern is so common, right? And then next up, we have another team. We have Double Ground, but Gligar does also count as a flyer. So yeah, Medicham in the lead. You could run Shadow Gligar. I probably would if I had a good one. The only Shadow Gligar I have is a rank 2800 something. And I don't need a perfect one, but I want something a little bit better. So I've been using the regular one, but if you want to try out the Shadow one as well, that works. Yeah, I mean, really strong team. And then next up, we have two Pokemon in the back, weak to fighting. Sableye does well against fighting. Of course, you could use a Trevenant in the lead. Registeel is a great safe swap because even if they respond with like a Medicham, a lot of times, depending on the moveset, you can force shields, right? So yeah, I mean, these are the Open Great League teams. There's plenty of more teams you can use, right? This is a big meta. But let me know what team you plan on trying out, and I'll see you in the next video. Have a good day. Bye.